I want us to address the Will Howard slander that is currently taking place in our college football ecosystem. If you watched yesterday's show, I put out my top 10 quarterback projections for 2024, which it wasn't a current ranking. It was a, when we get to November, when we get to college football playoff time, who will be the top 10 quarterbacks in the sport? Now, yours truly had Will Howard at 9. I don't back off of that. I regret nothing. It is what it is. But there were so many comments, not just from this list, but also previously around Ohio State, mostly aimed at Will Howard, saying, this guy's Kyle McCord 2.0. Ohio State is going to be mid once again. They just made a lateral move at quarterback. They still don't have a guy to drive the Bentley, is one comment I saw. And my issue with this way of thinking is we think that we know who Will Howard is going to be at Ohio State based on who he was at Kansas State. And to be fair, he has a pretty strong sample size at Kansas State. He played a lot of games, played 34 college football games. So yes, you've seen him play a lot of college football. With that being said, quarterback, I believe, is so much having to do with what you have around you. And what Will Howard had around him at Kansas State, God bless Kansas State and God bless Manhattan, Kansas, a lot of 3-stars on that roster. I love 3 stars. I'm all about 3 stars. But with that being out there, Ohio State has a lot of 5 stars. So Will Howard was playing with 3 stars. Now he's going to play with 5 stars. Do we think there's maybe some wiggle room for a discussion around how much better he's going to be playing with better people around him, playing with the best backfield in America, playing with one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver cores in America, playing with one of the best offensive coordinators, I believe, right now in America, in Chip Kelly, who previously was a Big Ten head coach and is now going to be a Big Ten OC. He took that job on his own accord. Didn't get fired at UCLA. Decided to take the job at Ohio State to be the OC under Ryan Day. Same guy as Kyle McCord. Are we kidding ourselves right now? Are we really thinking he's the same guy as Kyle McCord? I want to put this out there. I think Kyle McCord is going to do phenomenal things at Syracuse. I really do. I think Kyle McCord, given his time at Ohio State, kind of got a bad rap, to be honest with you. But if you think he's the same guy as Kyle McCord, I would say, how are you calling the offense on 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3 with Kyle McCord playing quarterback versus how you're calling it with Will Howard? Will Howard ran for 9 touchdowns last year at Kansas State. Kyle McCord had negative 65 rush yards. Kyle McCord 2.0. Give me a break. Will Howard is 6'4", 240 pounds. You can call quarterback power with that dude and feel just fine doing it a couple times in a row. Kyle McCord, not really a running threat. 6'3", 215. Think he'll be successful at Syracuse, but Will Howard and Kyle McCord are very, very different players. Say what you want about how they throw the football. I think that there's some comps to be made there. They are very different players. Last year was Kyle McCord's first year as a starter at Ohio State. He was getting comfortable being the guy. He had waited his turn. I think Ohio State fans appreciated that about him. He could have gone and started somewhere else. He could have left when C.J. Stroud was the guy. He didn't. He waited his turn. Got to be the guy. Will Howard's played 34 games in college football. When they play that game October 12th in Autzen against Oregon, his pulse stay in the exact same spot it was pregame. Okay, maybe it's elevated a little bit, but you understand. He's not going to have the heebie-jeebies. He's going to have the shaking hands like you see from that one clip that's circulating around social media. He's going to be the cool hand. And the reason why I know that, yes, it's a different stage. Yes, it's a different conference. I saw this dude in the biggest game of their season last year at Kansas State. Kansas State goes to Texas. They get down early. Will Howard, Uncle Rico loosens up the arm a little bit, goes for a 327, 4 touchdowns, took Texas to OT. And Texas, need I remind you, was a college football playoff team last year and was a play away from being in the national championship game, or at least having a chance to extend that game and be in the national championship game. Look who else wanted Will Howard out of the portal. That's a really good indicator, I think, especially at the high school recruiting level, to get a good indication as to how staffs feel about a guy, talent evaluators feel about a guy. I don't know what offers were on the table necessarily for Will Howard, but I do know that Florida State, Mike Norvell, who knows quarterbacks, was interested, and Miami was also interested in Will Howard. That should tell us something. The fact that you got 2 teams that are going to be college football playoff contenders this season, looking at Will Howard as being that guy to take them to that next level, Also, Ryan Day wanting Will Howard. That should tell us something. He knows good quarterback play when he's seen it. He's had a lot of guys be Heisman Trophy finalists and first-round draft picks. That's like the unofficial standard in Columbus. He knows a good quarterback when he sees it. He went out and got Will Howard. Went out and acquired him. Okay? It wasn't like Will Howard just kind of wandered in there and walked on. He went out and brought him to Columbus. If you're trusting someone to evaluate quarterbacks, I think Ryan Day and Chip Kelly are pretty fair people to trust. Last thing I'll say here, Chip Kelly, God bless him, he's done more with less. He's done more with less. Like Darren Thomas was slinging it around the yard when I was growing up watching college football. He took Oregon to a national championship appearance. Now they ran into Cam Newton and Auburn, but he still took him to that game. Jeremiah Masoli, he's tearing it up in the CFL right now. He's about my height, like 5'11". Like, he was able to do numbers with Jeremiah Masoli playing quarterback for him. This is not necessarily me trying to dunk on either of those people, but I do think Will Howard is at the very least comparable to both those guys from a skill level perspective, a talent level perspective. And I think if we're just going to be generous or honest here is a better way to say it, I think he's probably better than both those guys from a pure talent situation. I do know neither of those guys had Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins behind them, and neither of those guys had the arguably best wide receiver room in America playing with them. So, Will Howard slander, say what you want to say, but I would keep a running tally of the receipts on Twitter. So if he starts going off, and if he ends up being a top 10 quarterback in the sport, we can go back and delete those so Old Takes Exposed doesn't come around and get us. But if we're wrong, we will be wrong. We will talk about it here together. We will own our misses. But the Will Howard slander, the Kyle McCord 2.0, the saying he's going to be mid, I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a second. And we make no apologies for that. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.